안녕하십니까. So from now, as I mentioned, I think it's better to let you guys have the stage. And once you are all done, I will pass down the mic to the audience so that they could freely ask you questions. So I'll let you have the stage.
So, hello. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and I speak on behalf of Jaume for both of us. We've known each other quite a long time, and Jaume and I have worked on a number of projects together. In 2011, we made a really extraordinary exhibition at Yorkshire Sculpture Park, which, for those people who don't know it, is a 500-acre landscape with a really terrific sculpture gallery. And Jaume made an incredible journey through buildings and across the landscape and made an extremely cohesive and powerful exhibition in 2011. And later on, we'll see some images of that. And then we also worked together in, gosh, was it 2015? 15.
2015.
Yeah, in Venice for the Venice Biennale in San Giorgio Maggiore. A very different, very powerful installation. And again, we'll see images of that soon. And then this summer in June, we will be making an exhibition of drawings. And this is a long held wish of ours to make this exhibition. And we're making it in collaboration with the Picasso Museum in Antibes. So we'll be showing works from around the last 20 years, and they'll be showing works that are earlier than that. So it's complementary exhibitions, and there will also be a book, which is a survey of Jaume's drawings, and they are a very, very important part of his work. So let's start with this piece, which is in Korea. And Jaume, it's one of a family of works. You work in families where you create series of works over a period of time. And this is a sculpture which you invite people to come into.
Yeah, well, let me say hello the first time, and thank you to Busan to put us in touch together, Claire and I, because I guess we have a long history together. I think it's wonderful to discuss with you a little bit my work. Well, it's true. Actually, the image that it's in the screen now, it's one of the main concepts of my work, which is to build up the human body, the human figure, with different alphabets from different cultures. It's a celebration of diversity in our world. It's the concept how well we are when we are together, keeping our identity in any case. And the pieces are always open, inviting people to come in the way that the piece is embracing us. And we can see the world through the text. So this concept of the alphabet is probably the best portrait or the best photo of one culture.
And in this work, in this series of work, where you're taking letters from different languages, I think here, am I right in thinking we're looking at Korean, in the Korean language in this work?
Well, yes. Actually, it was possibilities. It was a work that I did for a company called Lotte in Seoul. And it was a fantastic piece. And it's a mix of different alphabets. In that case, it was Hebrew, Arabic, Cyrillic, Greek, Hindi, Latin, Japanese, Chinese, and Korean.
Yeah. And you get this incredible lightness and fluidity. Somehow you manage to create this lightness and fluidity through combining these letters. And I remember the first time that I saw one of these works was in Antibes, on the harbour wall.
Yeah,
and we were there for the inauguration, and we walked there, and it's the big nomad, which looks out across the Mediterranean. And there were people there who didn't know you, and they were just filled with delight. And I remember a woman saying, "It's the stars, it's the stars." And she was within the sculpture looking out at the night sky. And for me, this is one of the very important aspects of your work, is your ability to communicate and your desire to communicate with people who might not normally be engaged with contemporary art.
Well, actually, one of the main ideas behind my work is not to create objects, but to create places to be, to create a gathering place in where people could meet and enjoy to be together. I guess sculpture for me is not the creation of elements, but the creation of spaces in where we can be together. The Crown Fountain is a great example also, but also my pieces in the shape of human figure, or even the heads that I did for long years. It's always the concept of a space, to invite people to come in, to be together with others and to share the differences that I guess we can share and discuss. Wherever I am, people are very similar. I don't believe we have different memories. We have a single memory spread all around the world. And as far as you are going to your roots, I guess you are touching the roots of other people.
Mm. I mean, the exhibition that we're making with you this year is called In Small Places Close to Home, and it's a
That's
quote
a wonderful title. Oh God!
Yeah. I'm very proud because I found it.
I think it's just so poetical. I feel completely identified with that title that you imagine, because I guess my work, it's absolutely very well described in the title. My obsession is to try to understand where I am from, who I am, my roots. But because touching your roots, you are touching the roots of everybody else.
Yeah, I should say that In Small Places Close to Home is actually a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh, wow.
And it was in the creation of the United Nations, and she was talking about the importance of all the places on the map that you can't see. So these small places which don't even have a name on a map, but which are as important as the big cities and countries that we know.
I like it because also this title reminds me my first project with the Henry Moore Foundation many years ago in England with Robert Hopper. And I remember the first time I've been in his office, he had a map behind the table with the title, The Quiet Places in the World. And the place where the Henry Moore had the space was one of these quiet places. And he said, I love the quiet places, these small places where freedom is still possible for creation. And I guess it's very similar. I love the title because I guess it's essential today to create places for freedom in the world, especially probably in the moment of today that Europe is again in a kind of a strange war, and many people are suffering around, and many emigrants are moving again in our maps. And I guess art has an incredible possibility as a balm to in some ways to create a certain happiness and for people suffering.
Yes. Shall we see the next image? So this is a piece also in Korea. You can see it has a very different material sense. I think because it's a different alphabet, and also the scale of it. This is
that piece specifically, it was a piece thinking about the children, and the entrance is pretty small, and I guess is the proportion of their body. A little bit like Alice in Wonderland, that is changing the size of the girl in function of the doors, the entrances. I guess that it was strongly related with this, the piece Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, and the next image is called House of Memory from 2012, and this is in
that is in Shanghai. That is it, and I've been using the most primitive Chinese alphabets where you can still recognize as drawings the shape of human figures or trees or things like that. It was the first step to evolve to one more sophisticated alphabet. It's a beautiful piece as well, and well, it continues with the same philosophy to invite people to come in.
And I think it's important to talk a little bit more about this idea of sculpture being a place to which you can return. This is something that is really important within your work. We're looking at objects, but we're also seeing places, we're seeing memories.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm always thinking that art in the public fields are some specific rules in the way that you are not only creating for yourself, but you are trying to create a dialogue of your own dreams with the dreams of a community. That means that it's it's an incredible responsibility to share that. And every time that I'm thinking a project for the public space, I'm very sensitive about the place, the community, the history, the site, what the people are doing, the flows of people up and down every day. And obviously language has a tremendous capacity to be a kind of image of the society, because a single letter seems nothing, but together with other, it's constructing and creating words with words, ideas and ideas culture. That means from the smaller to the greatest. It's like a community. A single person seems nothing with another could do. Families with family, neighbors, cities, countries, continents, worlds. I mean, and I think every time that we are talking, we are in some ways playing our instrument, our body as an instrument. Our voice is the music of our body. And finally, the text is the partition of that music. It's like a musician writing down the partition. Every time that we are writing a text, it's the partition of our music, of our voice.
Oh my goodness, there's a lot in what you've just said. That's incredibly rich. And let's have a look at the next image. Because this is where sculpture and architecture combine, probably perhaps for the first time for you in Japan.
Well, that was a very interesting project for me, because I created a very little pavilion in Ogijima, a little island in the interior sea of Seto. It's near Takamatsu. And I enjoyed very much, because the roof, it's made out with alphabets again, but I create a little pavilion in where people could buy the tickets for the ferry or a souvenir from the island. The shape, it's very interesting, because the shape, it's like an oyster in some ways. One part is physically real, and the other is the reflection on the water. It's virtual. It's the shape of a figure walking through, which is me in the night, and both sides of that oyster is closing on me. I guess for me it was the best representation of what home means for me, which is to protect myself inside that incredible piece.
It's so interesting, because I think you're somebody who's very you're intent on thinking about the world as a place that doesn't have boundaries, that doesn't have division, where, really our differences are very small differences.
They are just details.
In the end, we're humankind.
Yeah, well, my work is basically directed to humanity. I'm not sure if I believe so much about borders or flags or nationalities. I think human beings are so beautiful and extraordinary, plenty of imperfections. But that is the most important part that makes us so tender. I think perfection don't let us to go in nobody. I think that is key. In the most extraordinary traditions, when you do a piece, it's always important to make a little mistake in the piece to keep our humanity in it. Perfection, I think, is a huge mistake.
And it's so interesting because this kind of, in a way, this sort of global view that you have, it doesn't stop you, in fact, quite the reverse, in understanding the importance of place. Like this pavilion, Ogishima, on the sea, and how that operates within a community, a fishing community.
Yeah, well, it was amazing because one day the curator of that project, Frank Kitagawa, came one day to Barcelona to visit me and said, Jaume, we are so surprised because the pavilion is generating a new life in the island, because everybody was pretty old, and the retirement of everybody stopped the jobs, etc. It was not young people anymore, but young couples are back. The school opens again, and the thing that for him was very, very strange was that the more and more was people asking to be married in the pavilion. Yeah, I know it's completely strange, but for me it was, well, extraordinary, because a piece becomes, it's giving a function to the piece. The community decide what to do with your piece, and I think that is an incredible experience, because your dream, it's just an intuition, but when the intuition becomes real, it's thanks to the community that they finally understand the piece and give them a function. I think it was fantastic, and apparently it's a lot of couples getting married over there.
And I think, something that's very distinctive about your life is not just that you are an artist, but that you are an artist who has an incredible practice within the public realm. And public sculpture is an incredibly important thing to you, the concept of it.
Yeah. Well, I remember, for example, in 1998, I did a very interesting piece in Gimpo, in Korea. And it's probably strange that I had not any idea that my work was so interested in the public space, but people already invited me to do pieces over there in the public fields. Probably they understand that my kind of attitudes with reality or with the community were key to develop projects in the public fields. Obviously, I'm keeping both sides. I'm keeping my work in galleries and museums, but I'm continuously very interested to develop my work in the public space. Many times people do a mistake thinking about public space. They said public art. I hate that concept, because art is always public, because it's a moment when you are talking to others, you are open your heart to everyone. But I guess it's something very specific that we can say the public space. It's the space that we are sharing. It's in a space that it don't belongs to anyone, but it's owned by us. It's a very strange contradiction. And many times I'm defending that the most strong public space is water, because water, it's moving all the time. It's a place that belongs to all of us. But it's impossible to keep it and touch it, and I think it's a specific rules to develop concepts in this kind of places.
Yeah, and I'm here in Britain, in Northern England. You made a piece called Dream in St Helens, which was enormously and continues to be enormously important to, again, a place that had been a mining community, but there is now no mining in Britain. So it was a very deprived, very, very difficult economically for this place.
Well, actually, it was one of the most strong experiences in my career, because I've been working with the ex-miners of that site, St. Helens, near Liverpool. And I still remember that we did meetings in the pub of the town. And one of the ex-miners one day said, Jaume, the darkness is so strong inside the pit that even light becomes a dream. And that was the title of my piece, Dream. And it's funny how this kind of words are, in some ways, building a concept of a community, because they were very happy, because it was send, let's say, beauty in a very hard place. And I was very happy recently. I've seen is a series in Netflix that it's using my piece as the concept of the area. I think the title is "Stay Close," something like that. And I remember Peter Murray sent me an email, Jaume, you must to see the series. and I think it's nice when art becomes part of the everyday life of a community.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud that Dream in St. Helens got that kind of situation now.
And it's so interesting how that community continues to, in a way, articulate the work by they do yoga around the sculpture, they do meditation, they do a lot of education work around it with children. So now it's it really is it's a place which is really part of this community, very powerful.
Yeah, I guess I'm extremely pleased to talk with you, Claire, because I guess you are one of the person that could understand very well what it means to work in the public space, because you are directing a park of sculptures, which is not exactly a museum, which is not exactly a public space, which is not exactly a gallery. What is a public park like yours, which is also a place where you can have a beautiful drink or nice food, or also a nice walk. You meet the sheep or the cows. I think you are talking about life, and life is much stronger than art. That is the reason that probably art is so important, because we are thinking about life. That is the source of our information. It's life, and then for me it's the most important. Obviously, museums, galleries. That it's I don't know. There is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We are both at the same time, but life.
Yeah, life. Okay. On that, let's see the next image, which is a work in Japan, I think. Yes.
Yeah. It's roots. Now, this piece was a commission of Fumio Nanjo, the former director of the Mori Museum. And I immediately understood that it was an incredible place to talk about our origin. That is the title, Roots. It's because I did an elongation of the letters, like roots coming inside the earth. Like you mentioned, when it's dripping down the colors in the ink in my drawings and making this kind of lines going down, even inside the earth. And I'm completely convinced that we are part of our land, the place where you are born. It's really the origin of everything, and we are just made out with sounds, with text, with letters. The voice of your mother when I was talking to you is coming from earth, and you cannot forget that moment through all your life. You can get other information. You travel around the world. You talk and speak other languages, but the voice of your mother in that moment, it's forever. And I think that sound, it's the sound of roots, this idea that we are strongly fixed in one point of the world.
And also this sense of something that's that's got a very vertical direction that connects the earth with the sky and the possibility of eternity.
Well, you remember that was part also about the concept of the heart of rivers or the heart of trees, this idea of alchemists, that they were talking always about from the death material, a new life is coming up. And it was with the shape of a tree. And the roots of the tree comes from the death material. The trunk was like a bridge, and the branches embrace the cosmos. That was that amazing idea of the symbology of the alchemist, this possibility to transform the death material into a new life coming up. And I guess a sculptor has a lot to talk in that way, because a sculptor many times is just to shake people that gets a little bit sleepy. it's just to send you again a message in a bottle. That is a sculpture. Something that you don't know exactly to whom is arriving the message, but you must do an incredible bottle to travel around the oceans and oceans to arrive to a very far beach. And somebody could open that bottle and read the message and cry. I think that it's probably the most beautiful part of our job.
I think so too. So let's see the next image.
Oh, that is an incredible. That was part of our exhibition in 2011, Yorkshire Sculptor Park, and that was really the origin of that concept of invisibles. That idea that I'm creating pieces that finally are embracing only air, and you can see through. They are never blinding the elements that are behind. And for me, it was especially amazing because I'm a Mediterranean origin, and I did the show in a very English concept of a park, a beautiful landscape, and it was an incredible dialogue from 2 points of the park, Mediterranean and English, and the pieces were there like embracing the landscape inside the heads. I think it was one of the most beautiful exhibitions I did in my life.
Yeah, well, and this is Nura and Irma and Nuria, who are the heads of two girls. And actually, this is the we have a grass roof of our gallery, so they're actually on top of the gallery with the landscape beyond. And it was a touch of genius. I think it was Peter Murray's idea to place the heads on the roof.
Yeah, it was a great idea because you had all the park behind. It was fantastic.
You have sky and everything coming through them. And maybe we can talk a little bit about the girls and who they are and why this is another family of works.
Yeah,
and the importance of these.
Well, we were talking before about the alphabets from different cultures. This idea to put everything together as a celebration of diversity and life. But I decided to do something similar with portraits and faces of people. Thanks to the experience of Millennium Park, experience of the Crown Fountain in Chicago, in where I've been filming 1,000 faces of people in video, I decided to keep on the track of the portraits, but with more traditional materials, as a stainless steel, like in that image, or marble stones, different stones, wood, etc., bronze. And I decided only to do portraits of a woman because I always felt that the future is female and the past and the memory is female as well. And men, it's a beautiful accident, but it's something more simple. And and that's the reason that in those portraits are Irma and Wilde. It's people from different origins. Nuria, it's Chinese. Irma is from Dominican Republic. People from different origins, creating a very large mosaic of different cultures as well.
I'm just a little bit aware of time, so we'll go to the next image, but we'll come back to this. No, it's not you. So this is Spiegel, which was also at Yorkshire Sculpture Park. And here we have two silhouette figures facing one another.
Well, actually, it's probably because the concept of conversation, that it was also one of my obsessions. You and your shadow. You and the image in the mirror. I did a lot of pieces in two elements, like the Crown Fountain, which is also a dialogue with two faces. Spiegel means mirror in German, and it is this idea of you and your image in front of the mirror. I think that piece is now in Washington in one collection, and the last time that we have seen the piece, it's beautiful because you can really walk around and go inside and out. Well, it's this idea of pieces in conversation are fantastic because they are creating an incredible emptiness in between, fill it up of energy. Like you and I right now, that we have a very strange space in between, which is fill it up of energy. That is the most beautiful part when two persons are talking.
And we don't have a picture of it here, but often there were sheep in these sculptures and around
Yeah.
the sculptures, because where this piece was sited is where it's
Exactly.
a sheep. So
yeah, it is. It was surrounded by sheep. That's it.
And so the next image, again, this is from the Sculpture Park, and this goes back to the idea of alchemy and this idea of roots. And
that was the piece which I've been talking before. It's my self-portrait cast in bronze, embracing a tree, and that is the homage to that idea that the, let's say, death material, let's say bronze, it's fixed in one size, in one shape, in one weight, but the tree was real, and the tree continues to grow and grow and grow. And for me was also an incredible metaphor about body and soul, because our body gets fixed in one side and one way, but our soul continues to get experiences, to accumulate memories, where we are keeping our recalls, where we are keeping all the memories from our life, because our body, like an archive, it's limited. Where, which size has our memories inside ourselves? And that idea of body and soul for me has been always very important idea.
And the next image shows us the detail of the surface of the work. And I think also the next image.
Yes.
Yeah, in Yorkshire you get all weather. So here it is in frost. But tell us something about the words on the.
Well, I decided to cover it completely, my self-portrait, my body, with names of music composers. As you know, I love music, and music for me is very important. I decided really, as a document, let's say, to make a list of the most interesting for me music composers around the world. Also, there are 7 figures, like the 7 notes of a partition, 7 times myself, but covered with different names of music composers.
And the next image. Tell us what the letters are, what they make, what the words make.
Well, I decided to do that piece in 29 pounds, which is a little small town in the desert in the States, in the US. And it's a mix of different fragments of poetry from different poets that I respect and love. And it's a huge piece, thousands of letters. And it's a curtain of poetry. And I gave a lot of importance, because in that image it's very well represented how a person is passing through. I always understood that poetry is like a door, is like an entrance. It's something that you decide to pass through. It's your decision. And poetry embraces you and protect you from all the mosquitoes in life. That it's something that I love, because it's like a curtain in front of a store that it's protecting from flies and mosquitoes of our life. And it's very beautiful, because the curtain is made out with metal. And then when you pass through or you touch the curtain, it's making this beautiful sound, which reminds me when I was a child with my mother in the stores, playing with all the curtains in my Mediterranean area, protecting from flies and mosquitoes.
This piece, you know, and many of the works that we've been looking at, where you've liberated words, letters from the page. We're seeing the backs and the fronts. We're seeing them.
Absolutely. That for me was very important, because it was very frustrating that letters were always very frontal, fixed in one paper, like a wall. And it was the liberation of those letters. You can finally see the backside of a letter, A or B or C. For me, it was really an exercise. You are right. It's wonderful. Thank you.
And I think there's something also that's very important here, which is about the dematerialization of matter, of material, of bringing light. Light is essential in your work. In a way, all of your work is about light in many respects.
My work my work, or probably myself, it's plenty of contradictions. And I guess my work is born in that the friction of both sides, those contradictions. And I'm upset to use materials when I'm dreaming to find the invisibility. It's a contradiction. I'm upset about the soul, but I'm upset to build up a body. We are talking about the spirit, but I'm working with material, matter, and a spirit. Always contradiction, light and darkness, matter and a spirit, day and night. All those things that for me are in friction, and that kind of friction creates this incredible energy that for me is important for creation. I have to say that I prefer always to talk about opposites, to create sound, to talk about silence. That it's for me key and very important.
And one of the very important messages around this work was about touching and about caressing.
Well, that was a funny situation one day in Des Moines, in Iowa. I had a lecture introducing one of my sculptures that they installed in a big park over there. And I spent all the time talking about interaction with my work, how important was for me the interaction of people. And in the end, when a very gentle woman put the question and said, Mr. Plensa, you are always talking about interaction, but besides your work is a display saying, please do not touch. What is your answer? And I said, well, the museum forgot to finish the quote. It's please do not touch, comma, caress. And that was for me a little bit the motto of my work. It's true that I guess in the school or in the beginning of our education, we need to understand that such important difference between caress and touch. And art, it's more related to caress. Love is to caress your kids, your lover, all these persons around. But to caress light, to caress things that for you seems impossible to get it. I mean, it's possible. I'm from the Mediterranean, and in my culture, the eyes are in your fingers in some ways, and you need to verify permanently the shape, the if it's cold or if it's warm, if it's rough or if it's smooth. I don't know. I mean, and your fingers are really the eyes of your soul.
Beautiful. Well, let's go to the next image. This is Wilsis. So this is a beautiful cast iron. She's nearly 3 meters high, and she's on the shore of our lake at Yorkshire Sculpture Park. And in a way, this is one of the oppositions that you're talking about, transparency. And here we have this very solid cast iron work, but still, I think the word is anamorphic, so that she is turned, she's a little bit stretched, and so there's some dematerialized.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny because I've been well known around the world thanks to the cast iron in the 80s, and I abandoned completely the cast iron because for me was it not necessary anymore the opacity of that material. Many years later, I went back to the cast iron because I found a way to make the cast iron in some ways a little bit invisible with the compression of the volume. And that piece is a fantastic example. The photographer of Yorkshire, Jeong, did this amazing photo when you see a person right in front of the piece. The piece is 7 meters tall, but when you are in front, it feels that the volume is complete. But when you are walking around, it seems that the piece is disappearing, because the volume is completely compressed. And that is coming also from the idea of a coin. When you see the face in a coin and you look at in the backside and you don't see nothing, I get desperate. I want to know what is in the backside of it. And that was the reason to compress the volume. And I guess that is Wilsis. Wilsis is also a woman from the Dominican Republic. It's fantastic because surrounded with these giant trees, right in front of the water, which is also one of the most important things for me, to be near of the water. I think it's one of the most beautiful photos representing my world. I think it's fantastic.
And I think, I mean, perhaps we haven't said that many of the girls whose, I suppose they're kind of portraits, they're kind of not portraits, but in any case, the girls who are the subjects of the work, they are young women who they're on the cusp of womanhood, and they're very often young women who have already traveled, who've already lived in, have crossed boundaries, have lived in different countries, and that sense of movement and migration is really important in this family of works.
Exactly. Well, finally, I'm paying homage, I guess, to people that must to move from their home to other places to find a better life, or to protect better their kids, or to find a certain happiness in their life. I mean, the world is organic and is always in movement. That is the reason that many times I'm not so happy with borders and flags, because I guess the main country is the language. I think wherever you are traveling with your country, which is your voice and your alphabet. But it's true that you must to share other cultures. But it's also incredible how important is the way to fit a culture with people coming from other places. I guess it's a way to make much richer the tradition with the tradition of others. I guess for me, future is a mix of all of us. I mean, a little piece of all of us, but in an incredible, warm way.
Well, on that note, let's go to the next image, because this is one of the most important works of your career.
Yeah.
You've already mentioned it a couple of times. This is the Crown Fountain in Chicago, which are two towers of glass bricks, which have continually changing faces, photographed of people in Chicago, and from their mouths spout water. So you create this very shallow lake between the two towers, and it's a place that people congregate.
Yeah, well, actually, I wanted absolutely to export the concept of the Mediterranean Plaza in the north.
Could we have the next image, just so we can see more better? Yeah, that's better.
That's it. Yeah. Well, this idea of plaza, which means that there's nothing in. It's just an empty space waiting people to come in, but covered with water. It's 1/8 of an inch thick. It's just nothing that people could walk on top of the water. As you know, it's one of my problems. I don't swim, I don't float, and that was one of my dreams one day, to walk on the water. But also with the idea of the gargoyles. The gargoyles, as you know, in my Western tradition in the medieval times, was something very useful. It was a kind of strange faces, grotesque even faces, spitting water from their mouth. Okay, for me, the mouth, the way to talk is the same. We are giving life to the other. Our words or water. The 60% of our body is water. That was an homage to the origin of life, the water. And people could really enjoy. If you go to the next image, I guess you can probably see that. No, the other, it's another one, maybe. Or no, probably not.
No, I think those are.
That's fine. That's fine. But here, people could see very well the gargoyle effect of the water passing through. And we were filming 1,000 faces of people living in town, all kinds of conditions of ages. And it was to create this very large mosaic to represent the people in town. Of course, architecture is important, but for me, the real soul of one city is people. And I wanted to pay homage to the anonymous people creating one town. And I guess this project, the Crown Fountain, was really so well accepted because it was a celebration of our diversity and our life.
Yeah, it's an important work in your practice, but it's an important work in history, I think, in art historical terms. I'm just aware of time, so let's go to the next image and then the one after it, because it would be a shame to leave this out.
That piece, it was a terrific experience also, because it was in Rio de Janeiro, right in front of the Sugar Loaf, and the other side of the Corcovado. And I guess it was a fantastic experience. Is a Wilde, also a girl who moved from one country to another, rising up from the water in this beautiful space. I guess it was a terrific experience, because somebody told me in front of the piece, but Jaume, this is so amazing. The beauty of that city is amazing. Why she has the eyes closed? And I said, because my intention is to emphasize the quantity of beauty that we are hearing inside ourselves. My intention is to try to invite people to talk about themselves, because for many reasons, for culture, for education, we never found the right moment to talk about ourselves. We are always talking about something else. And I would love to use my piece as a mirror, in where people say, well, look at, she has the eyes closed. Let me do the same. Let me try to think what is inside.
I'm gonna suggest we skip, but let's keep going. And here again, we see this incredible combination of sculpture in water. Let's keep going. And here, this is Echo in Madison, in New York. And the next image, this is a nomad. A next image. Well, this is continents. So this is a piece which relates to much earlier continents, made 20 years ago, I suppose.
Yeah, but you can go further, because I guess we can talk more about other pieces.
Keep going. And so I think this is the next image is very important to see, because this is one of the most recent pieces that you've made. Do you want to talk about this one? Because this is, for me, I mean, this is I think not exactly a departure in your practice, but it's certainly a new family.
Well, that is a piece that I did in Grand Rapids at the Mayer Sculpture Garden. And it was a room surrounded with these 4 faces, one in each wall, creating a kind of place for meditation, let's say. And it's a contradiction again, because that is the welcoming room of the museum. And I transform it into a place to keep silent. And it's where you have to inquire information. It's a desk in where somebody will inform you. But I surround it as a place in where people could keep calm and silent. You can go ahead.
And this is a marble carving, then it's developed.
Absolutely. That was a crazy project, because it's a huge project. I found an incredible, beautiful marble, white marble without veins. And we spent almost 400 tons of marble to do that piece. And we lose 100 carving. And I covered completely the walls, which is about 26 meters long by 6.5. It's completely, well, I don't know. I invite people to go and to experience. I guess it's really unforgettable.
And then the next image is Water Soul. Sorry, after this one.
Yes,
again, which is, these are incredible photographs. This is New Jersey. Yeah.
Well, I had this fantastic invitation to do a project in a pier going inside the Hudson River in New Jersey City, right beside the train station and the ferry station. Well, I could not expect something better as a commission for me, water, and also the idea of movement, train station, ferry station. As you know, New Jersey is the continent right in front of Manhattan, which is the island, and all the goods arriving from other places over there and we're sending to the islands. Okay, that piece wants to be the figurehead of a ship, but asking silence to listen again the voice of the water, the profound voice of the water, which are talking to us. And we are so noisy, we are always trying to think something else, that we forgot the water is there. And the water is the most important element in life for us. And I was asking silence to the water, and that piece is the water soul, because the American Indians living there, the Native Americans living there before, was people as me, thinking that everything in life has a soul. And obviously for me, water as well. And that is the reason that I entitled it Water Soul. And it's this beautiful young woman with a finger in her lips asking silence.
Well, I think that's a beautiful place to end. But maybe we can just have the next image, which shows another detail of this work. So I'm aware that we've gone over our time and that people may want to ask questions. So thank you, Jaume. That was incredible.
Well, no, Claire, please. It is a pleasure. Come on.
And maybe we need to come back to see if anybody wants to ask you a question.
Okay, thank you so much for your wonderful presentations, response, and the entire presentation. And I think we should end our session, unfortunately, here. We wouldn't like to let you go, but I think we should end it here. So thank you again so much for your participation and your time, for your effort in connecting and meeting with the audience here in Busan.
Well, thank you, Seokho, for your
Thank you so much. 여기까지 하고 강연을 마치도록 하겠습니다.